What do you need for your podcast setup? This is a question that I get often asked where people are coming to me and they're wondering, what do I need for to be a podcast host? What do I need as a podcast guest? So I just want to walk you through today what you need for your podcast setup. First and foremost, you want to make sure you have a good quality podcast microphone. I recommend the Blue Snowball, the Blue Yeti. I'm going to run you about 50 to $100, maybe a little bit more, depending on the microphone that you buy. Whether you're a host, whether you're a guest, you want to make sure you have a good quality podcast microphone. You want to make sure you have a good quality webcam, whether you're a host or a guest. I think for my webcam that I purchased, it was about $30 on Amazon. It doesn't have to be overly expensive. You want to have a ring light. I like having a ring light where a lot of the times I'll use natural light, but there'll be times where I don't have that option to have that natural light, and it might be the winter, it might be dark outside, it might be raining. That's where I'm going to be using that ring light. And I bought one again on Amazon for 25, $30 again. Doesn't have to be overly expensive to get a nice, good quality ring light. So those are the three things that you initially want to have: the mic, the webcam, and the ring light. But definitely the microphone more than anything else. Outside of that, you want to be in a nice, quiet spot in your house, depending on where that is, whether that's in your bedroom, whether that's in your office. For me, I'm in my guest bedroom. That's where I record the interviews. And what I do is I'll just throw up like a background on when I'm recording like these YouTube videos to make it look just a little bit more professional. I use Riverside for my background. As right now, you can add the backgrounds in, but it doesn't look as good. But I find when I'm recording on Riverside, it's not going to do this full picture like we're seeing here today in the video. So I do recommend, if you are like using like a Zoom, then I would probably recommend having a nice background. I use like someone on Fiverr for like $5 or $10 to go out and get a nice quality background. And again, this is if you don't have a nice office or somewhere. Like for me, I just have the guest bed in the background. So particularly don't want that to be seen in every single interview that I do. So I just want that good quality background just to make it look more professional. You can also have a dedicated podcast studio that you can rent out. I know in my local area, I can rent out a podcast studio for 50 or $100 an hour. But again, I just prefer to do it from the comfort of my home. Something I want to touch on when it comes to the quality of the podcast mic, or I should say just the podcast mic within itself. You want to make sure it's not somewhere where you're going to be hitting it all the time, where you're going to be running into it, because podcast mics, they're going to be picking up a lot of things that go on around. Obviously, you talking about any background noise, so you don't want to be accidentally touching it over and over and over again. You just want to have it in a spot where it can just sit by itself and just stay there. But that's pretty much everything on how to have a good podcast setup. Again, it doesn't have to be overly technical. You just want a good quality podcast microphone. You want a good webcam. Maybe have a ring light depending on where you're at. Maybe have a background as well, or maybe you can just use that background of your office. Again, it really doesn't need to be overcomplicated to have that really nice podcast setup.